Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my fine friends. Welcome to episode 9 of season 10 of the Tom Petty Project podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Brown. This is the weekly podcast that digs into the entire Tom Petty catalogue, song by song, album by album, and includes conversations with musicians, fans, and people connected with Tom along the way. Today's episode brings one of those conversations with a musician to you in the shape of a chat that I had with the wonderful Tommy Edwin, who joined me on last week's show to talk about Don't Fade on Me, if you remember. Since he was last on the podcast in August of last year, Tommy has released 3 singles: Drive, Radio On, and Tell Me That I'm Crazy, the latter of which is a little bit of a departure from his usual style. We talk about the seismic impacts of the JFK assassination and Beatlemania, which form the bedrock of his excellent song Radio On, and you'll also hear Drive in its entirety at the end of the episode. Tommy's a real musician's musician, and it was a blast to shoot the breeze with him again, and I really hope you enjoy our conversation.
Tom Petty Project. Tom Petty. Hey, Tom Petty Project.
Doesn't technology just make life easier?
Oh yeah, it's fabulous, man. It's, it's like remember Queen, no synthesizers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that. They eventually got synthesizers because they had to, right? So
because use the tools, man. Like, just use whatever's available. Don't limit yourself.
I would just as soon go on stage with just a guitar and a mic, but with the kind of gigs I'm doing at the low level down here, we peons down here, playing the bar gigs. I played a bar gig on, by the way, how are you? I forgot. Did I say hi? How are you?
Very good. Yeah.
I'm very pleased to be back here with you. I told you how much I enjoyed the first session.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're playing these bar gigs and the crowd gets going loud. And you're trying to sing plaintive little love songs on your acoustic guitar, and nobody is listening. Till the end of the show, then somebody comes in, "Oh, we liked your music very much." I'd be like, "How did you hear it?"
Yeah.
So that's why I eventually, as a solo gig in bars and that kind of thing, I went with a looper pedal, that I could put backing tracks on, and now, at least I get a bit more engagement when I do the Tom Petty songs. I got bass and drums backing me up. When I fire into You Wreck Me, and crank the volume up, that helps. So
gets people's attention.
Yeah, but my opening set is like, You Don't Know How It Feels, I Won't Back Down, and You Wreck Me. I just boom, 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 hit those.
Yeah.
And that works. So thank you, Tom Petty, for those songs.
Well, I mean, talk about an icebreaker, right? I mean, some of those songs that he wrote, even if I think that some of those, like You Wreck Me, even if you don't know that song, if you have any love of rock and roll at all, you're going to get it immediately, because it's just such a good song. It's such an easy, cool riff, and
And my looper has exactly the perfect. My looper drum stuff is very simple. It just gives you a beat. There's not anything you can fill in or program or anything, especially, but it just rocks pretty well on that song and a few others. So it fits out pretty well. And, the drummer never screws up when you have a looper.
Oh, drummers are infallible, man. Come on.
Right. I'm sorry. I forgot for a second that you're a drummer. So I might have accidentally thrown that in.
I play drums. I'm not a drummer. There is a difference.
Well, as a mediocre guitar player, I totally understand, So the Tom, that's, you love his music, and then if you get to play it, and then play it like in a rock and roll band, Then I played for a guy's party. My producer, James Steffen, had a birthday party back in January and had sort of a pickup band there. And I got right up front and did the front man thing. And I'm like, 1, 2, let's go. I won't back down. And they're all going, man, we hit it though, and it was like, I'm in front of a band doing a Tom Petty song.
Yeah.
It was fabulous. Yeah.
Something special about that. Hey, I mean, there is something. I mean, obviously, touring as a solo artist is always cool, and I've got friends who do it as well, and it's a good way of making money too, because you don't have to share it with anyone. But being in a band, there is something special about that dynamic of playing with other people, right?
like I said, I'd probably have a band, but bands are hard to pull off. Sometimes at kind of where I'm at, because guys will be like, yeah, I can't make it to the gig. I've got to take my kid to soccer.
Yeah.
There's that thing. So it makes bands difficult. I'm going to try to have I got selected for doing a fairly big gig at the Levitt. I don't know if you heard the Levitt. It's an organization that puts on music in a lot of towns. They have a band shell and a big presence in Sioux Falls. And I'm not supposed to broadcast it yet because I want to make the announcement, but I'll be playing that show in the end of June. And for that, they like you to have a few other people playing with you if you're the opener. They don't want just a solo guitar up there.
Yeah.
So, and I actually did the first open mic for their series last year with a clarinet player, and it was fabulous getting up in front of 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people.
Yeah.
And I was surprised how calm I was and how much fun I had. So, and this is the same series, but I'll get to open for somebody I don't know, and it'll be about a half an hour. So
that's awesome, man.
And so I'll have to put a little band together for that, but that'll be a pleasure.
But that's something else that'll be fun, right? Is like going through a set list, figuring out what you can play, running through those with practice, and that's going to be a different thing again, which is keeps you interested.
And absolutely, I've got a guy who was here who was gonna be kind of a sideman for me when I need him. He plays guitar, mandolin, bass, tuba, and anything.
Yeah,
and has a voice that's probably better than mine. Not that mine's that great, but he's got a fabulous voice that could can do a lot of stuff, and he can sing a lot of high harmony. So we're kind of working him in as my sideman and sidekick, and he comes from the Grateful Dead tradition and bluegrass tradition. So it's like all these things that I've never been a great fan of, like bluegrass, right. And I've never been a Deadhead. It's like,
yeah, the Grateful Dead passed me by, and I think it's partially an age thing where I just a little bit too young, maybe a British thing because they weren't really as huge over there. I think I just missed them.
You have to really love jam bands to really like the, and jam bands are fine, but I'm more of a like, let's do the song. There's 2 minutes there you can do solo or whatever.
Yeah. And
I don't want to say it's too much noodling for me or whatever. And maybe I don't know how much, the extracurricular chemical substances have to do with how much you might like them. But, it's been a long time since I was there.
Yeah.
But I was probably as passionate about Yes as some Deadheads are about the Dead. I liked Yes so much I didn't listen to anything else but Yes for about 10 years. And it really, I might have mentioned this before, it really stunted my musical development in a sense. Yeah. Because I wasn't listening to much else, especially as the whole Americana thing took off,
Yeah, you miss out a lot. I mean, it's such a silly thing to say, I only listen to this type of music or I only listen to this.
Yeah,
listen
absolutely.
to everything. And I mean, a lot of it you won't like. There's still stuff that, my daughter will play for me or whoever will play for me. I'm like, it's okay, but I'm probably not going to listen to it again.
Yeah.
But at least I've heard it. At least I know that there's something else there, right?
Yeah. Also, my straight career, as I call it, as a professor, I was so involved with that. I didn't hardly listen to music for a long time. I just didn't have time, except for putting on an old tape on the Walkman as I did transfers in the, in the fungus room or whatever. But, and then when I finally got settled here and, I was still plinking along on guitar, it was actually the Jayhawks that got me listening to a lot of other things again. And, cool. And, I have a special place in my heart for the Jayhawks for them bringing me back. And then I started really getting back into guitar and stuff. So,
well, that's awesome. Well, okay, let's dig into, because it was August 2023. It was August of last year when we last spoke.
Okay.
And since then, you've released 3 singles. So I wanted to talk about those.
Okay.
Because I thought that'd be a good place to start. And so Drive was the first one that came out September 15th, 2023.
Yes.
So I wanted to, what were the origins of that one? Because one thing I noticed about this, I wanted to ask you this question, because as a songwriter, sometimes you run out of words. and sometimes you're not too sure you're going to arrange everything. There's a really short verse in this song, and then you go straight into almost like a guitar solo. So
Yeah,
was that a
yeah.
case of really wanting to subvert structure there and be very specific about doing that, or was that I'm not too sure what to say here. I'm just going to play my guitar.
Well, no, what happened was I did that, and the intro was fine where I do the guitar picking, or the little lead guitar was a fine thing, but I hadn't set the audience up for what the thing was about. It's all of a sudden I'm talking, I don't like the part, and a person could hear that and go like, what's he talking about, the parts?
Right.
And so I went back to that G to D A little progression that's at the end of the second little solo bit, and I did that, and I came up with the verse of like trying to set the stage for how two people are talking about the long distance relationship. So I just threw that in there, and then now the person's set up to listen to what whoever's talking about what's good and bad about a long distance relationship.
Yeah. Well,
Which is, go ahead.
I was just
I have
gonna
a bad habit of interrupting, so if I do that, just spank me.
Don't zoom. I'll figure out how to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that'll do. Yeah, do this with your hands so I can see it, or like the certain Jeff. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
No, I'm just kidding. I was going to say that because you commented earlier about very humbly about being a pretty average guitar player. I think the guitar playing on this song is fantastic, and because I listen to a lot of guys like John Prine and Steve Earle, and there are different ways of picking a guitar, and there are different sort of styles about how one might do that. And I think that the way you play this, you're playing on this song is so good, man. And it's one of the parts of this song that I think really sort of elevates it is how good the guitar playing is on it.
Thank you. I have that feeling of inadequacies about my guitar playing, but I have to say in that song I'm pretty happy with some of the stuff I came up with. Yeah, there's some little chord flavors in the way I pick that are I think they kind of identify me as my finger style.
Right.
I think you can hear the way I pick, and I think pick me out. And also if I'm playing lead, the kind of little half bends and things I do make me fairly distinguishable. But that, I worked on for a long time that, and it was really a lot of fun. And over a period of time, I came up with all the different little riffs in there, and that opening bit, that lead part, I played it as lead on the record. But normally when I'm playing solo, I can pick that whole thing up finger style myself.
Right.
So you get to hear that when I'm playing solo as well. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that song.
Well, wait, so because obviously as a guitarist, all guitarists start out by strumming chords, or I think the massive, massive majority. And finger picking is a very specific type of technique and a different thing. So when did you start picking, and who were the guys you were sort of listening to develop that style?
Okay, well, I quit when I came back to the States from Taiwan. I'd been playing drums. We talked about that, and I had to go to military school, and I'd sit around. I had a roommate who had a guitar. He's a right-wing Nazi now, but back then he was fairly cool. So I'd learn, to play. I learned to play, Gloria and things like that on guitar. I picked up playing a few chords right away.
Right.
And that made some of the guitar players in bands I was in pretty nervous, but that's all I could do. And so then I went off to the Navy. Or no, first I went to University of Delaware to try to do a semester before I got drafted by Uncle Sam. And I bought a guitar. I can't even remember what it was now. And I was staying at my aunt's because she worked at the university. And I was learning chords, and I heard the Flying Burrito Brothers album. The blue cover one, the one I'm talking about. Chris Hiller and Mike Clark were in the band then. And I listened to some of the stuff on there, like Tried So Hard and that finger picking and that sort of thing. and other guys were around that I was listening to. So what I did was I locked myself in a room, and I said, I'm not going to leave till I can at least make my fingers do something, just a Travis style pick.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And so it's always kind of been with me since since I was really started to pick up a guitar. And I've just, worked at it. And I'm not a great finger stylist the way some of these guys, who do solo instrumental stuff, and they can do all that. I'm trying to get there to be able to play all that syncopated ragtime stuff and
Right.
and all that business. But I just do what I can to try to support myself and what I find. And right now I'm working on. You talk about influences. I think back somehow Lindsey Buckingham was an influence, and I didn't even know it. Yeah. So what I'm working on now is Never Going Back.
Nice.
Yeah. So, which is not as difficult as some people think.
Well, if you need two guitarists for it though too, right? So
no, you can do it solo.
You can do it solo.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. But it's a matter of I found out that his finger picking and style and mine are pretty similar. So I call myself a finger picker, not a finger stylist necessarily.
Yeah.
And he's pure Travis picking, and so yeah, I'm working on little bits like that to try to learn them. And I have the aspiration to have a little bit more ragtime picking in what I do. So a few of the new songs I've written, haven't recorded yet, are really that kind of thing along the lines of Elizabeth Cotton and Mississippi John Hurt. That kind of Travis picking down there, where you pick out some lines on the treble and just keep the thumb going back and forth on the 1 and the 4 or whatever,
Yeah.
So that kind of thing. And I got a couple really fun old timey tunes now that I've written that way, but I haven't recorded them yet.
But it suits. I mean, the types of the styles of song you tend to write, or certainly the ones that on the album, and on the first 2 songs we're talking about today. That's what you need. Is you need that picking style, and it sort of suits the timbre of your voice. It suits the delivery and everything like. So you don't need to force it into a different style if it suits what you're doing. And when you are writing songs and you're a songwriter,
I'm comfortable with being who I'm comfortable with being who I am. Absolutely. And I interrupted you again, and I apologize.
All good, man. All good. But so I was going to say too, though, because this song Drive, obviously with it being about long distance relationships, I mean, my wife and I, before we got married, because she's from Canada, I'm from England originally, we figured out we were in the same cities each other for about 40 days before we got married. So we did the whole long distance relationship between Germany and Canada, and then again for another couple of years when I was going to school. So it resonates, right? Like a song like this really resonates for me. I can put myself into the narrative of this one. So I really enjoyed it.
Trying to connect with people who have that issue. So didn't work out for me, but that's probably why there's a song about it. So
okay, well let's move on to, I think maybe my favorite Tommy Edwin song, Radio On.
Yes.
So this one is about, there's universality in songs, and then there's specificity. This is a very specific song, but you still managed to get some of it in.
You and my producer James both love that. That's why we went to doing the video. He was the force behind that.
Okay.
I don't even play Radio On live that often because I'm not sure how crowds react to it, but it means a lot to me, and I think I did a pretty good job on it, but James is just nuts about it. So we did the video to coincide with the anniversary. So
tell people what it's about and set up, like what's the story of it, because it's about a specific event, and then it's also about something else that I think there's another thread there that I sort of pick up on. So I'll let you tell people what this song's about.
Certainly it's about a specific event, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, but it's also the juxtaposition of another event later on in the very next year with the emergence of the Beatles.
Yeah.
And you're a young person, so you weren't, didn't have the, I'll call it a privilege or whatever, to be there when they hit.
Yeah.
And it truly was like a bomb going off.
Yeah.
There's before Beatles and after Beatles, and buddy, it's a quantum leap. Yeah, I just can't even begin to describe it. So it's about those two things, and I haven't experienced both those things. And I could have made that a lot of longer as I've written a song. I almost want to be like Dylan and start adding verses.
Absolutely.
And and I probably need to have a verse about the song's fine as it is because it focuses on those. But I was thinking the other day I could have had more of a intro about how we were bored with the bebop music and the Beach Boys. That's what we had to listen to. I had my brother's old 45s with like, Chris Montez, let's dance, and Paul Anka and stuff like that, and then Beach Boy. I'd be over at people's houses. Beach Boys albums were all over the place. It was great. My 409, my four, all that kind of stuff, cars and whatever, and it had a little bit of to it. The Beach Boys stuff had a little bit of oomph, rock and roll wise,
Yeah.
But so I could have had another verse about that, and I thought after the Beatles, I might have had a verse about, remember Bruce Springsteen said that when he first heard Like a Rolling Stone on the radio, it was like somebody kicked open a door.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly true, because I didn't really know who Bob Dylan was. I was a big Byrds fan. I knew they wrote some songs, but I'd never listened to them,
Yeah.
So then we're down in Florida and moved up to New York when my dad went over and dropped bombs in Vietnam. And I remember these events, like sitting in the room, the radio, and that snare hits and, kaboom. Yeah. It's the same thing as down in Florida when Satisfaction by the Stones came out. I'm listening to the radio, boom.
Yeah.
All sitting in the car at Okinawa outside the library while my mom went in the library. And Jimi Hendrix comes on with Purple Haze.
Yeah.
So, those are radio moments, so radio on.
Yeah.
That's what used to happen, is radio on is how it all got to us.
But I think that's though, you've picked the two. I mean, I don't know, obviously I'm not American, but it seems to me that those two events were such seismic cultural events that they sort of, because Dylan became, one of the most huge culturally important people in America on the songwriting side, but he didn't really have that Ed Sullivan moment. He kind of just came in, right?
Yeah, and that's why, I could have those additional verses, but it's fine without it. And and I really wanted to focus on those because put the time in context. November 22nd, JFK dies, and things go dark for a long time. And then somehow in the spring, we come back to life when this band from England comes along. And the funny thing is, I didn't get to see him on the Ed Sullivan show.
Right.
Because we were in Germany. We didn't even have TV.
Right.
Much less American TV. And my kids were like, what do you mean you didn't have TV? Well, it was the dark ages. We were in Germany. It was, only 15 years after World War II. We didn't have televisions, and that sort of thing. And so, but great anticipation had built up about the Beatles. And I still remember, this is, when I was really starting to get interested in music as about an 11, 12-year-old. And I would sneak off to the NCO club on Wiesbaden Air Base, and I'd see bands that came in there. And these German bands, 4-piece bands would come in, rocking,
Yeah.
And the rock and roll was around. They were doing it. And they got up and all had the same blue jackets on. Their name was the Blue Stars, I remember one group. And rumors started circulating about a band up in Hamburg that was really good.
Yeah.
GIs had come back and seen them, we're hearing this thing. And then the Odeon singles started floating through, with the green label.
Yeah.
So I got Here Love Me Do. And I had, believe it or not, I had the 45 with Tony Sheridan with the Saints Go Marching In, and my Bonnie on the flip side.
Oh my God.
With the Beatles backing him. And that, I don't know where that went, but that thing now is worth about $1,000,
Yeah. Easily.
And and so this excitement was building up, and their album came out. Somebody had the album, and I remember how avant-garde I thought the cover was. The picture of the four Beatles on it. Meet the Beatles. They're in the dark, you know, and it was just starting to build up. And then here I was being the good Boy Scout, and one day we stopped at the Post Exchange, and there it was. I want to hold your hand back with I saw her standing there.
Yeah.
In the little white, wrapper. And I took that home and played it till, I started collecting all the Beatles records right then. And it was just fabulous. And I'd never got my hands on the LP till later on. And then we moved from Germany. But it was a really exciting time because, you heard something like She Loves You. And, it's incredible songwriting and riffs.
Yeah.
What they did on there. And I Want to Hold Your Hand. I still, the rhythm guitar sound on I Want to Hold Your Hand is like the greatest thing there ever was. There will never be as great a rhythm guitar part as John Lennon on I Want to Hold Your Hands.
Yeah.
It had a tone there that, oh my God, how do you get that tone? And I don't know how they did it, but it was, yeah, well, I still quickly. Dream about having that tune.
They did it quickly. They did it quickly.
Yeah, and half the time Lennon would play out of tune and do crazy things. But yeah, he was a really good rhythm guitarist, and he could play a little lead too. So yeah, so it's all those things, and all of a sudden it was the Beatles, and everybody was talking about the Beatles, and everything was different, and we were, trying to grow our hair long, and our dads were making us go to the barber shop and turn that music off and go study, and yeah, the rebellion was underway, So that's the thing. This traumatic event that we'd never experienced before. We'd never had anything like that happen when JFK was assassinated. Up to that point, if there was traumatic stuff, we hadn't experienced it in our little cocoon of a life in the military. And this was just like, bam.
Yeah.
Everyone. And then, that came over the radio. I was sitting in the house. I used to listen to the top 20 on the Armed Forces radio every Friday night. And I turned on the radio for that. And that's when the news came across. Because, remember, people have to remember when I do that song, we're in Germany, not in the United States, when I'm talking about seeing the stars and everything. And that was it. And then and then Beatles started coming over the radio with all the hits, February, March there. They were just like, oh, the Beatles have 12 songs on the top 20.
Yeah.
It was like that. So,
and there isn't really an equivalent for this generation either for that, right? Because, the way we consume media now, I think maybe something like TikTok might be the closest thing that my kids' generation has to a global event that just comes over the radio. It's not visual. It's not, but the first place you hear about it is via the wireless. It's the same as, with Wells' War of the Worlds. When they did the War of the Worlds broadcast, and it's so detached that it becomes this thing almost because of the medium that it's put out through. So the radio, Queen did Radio Gaga, the harkening back to they were the good old days.
Yeah.
They kind of were in a way, right? Because it was just different to the way it is now. It wasn't saturated,
Absolutely.
And it wasn't on demand either.
Here's the problem with the social media now is since I was a radio man in the Navy too, by the way, I don't know if you knew that.
I did.
Yeah, I did my 4 years in the Navy as a radioman. And the thing about, let's say something like Twitter, we're both on Twitter, right? And the analogy I like to draw is that, okay, imagine it's 1960 and everyone in the world is given their own radio transmitter.
Yeah.
And their own frequency, right? So everybody's out there blah, blah, blahing on their radio frequency, but you have to know the frequency to dial in, so you can hear the person. So mass communication, I don't know what it's led to, every day on Twitter, more and more, I just want to, throw that in the garbage,
Yeah, I'm getting close.
I'm still on there because of a few friends and trying to do something publicity wise with my music, but, I'm not sure that's led to a better world at all,
No, and I mean the other thing too. I think that say JFK had happened in the era of social media, it would have been hashtag JFK. People would have responded to it and then scrolled on. and that would have been it, right?
Yeah,
That it would have been a 2-second reaction.
I don't know how let's hope the world doesn't have to experience that, but it certainly would be a seismic event, but it would be a seismic event for 3 days.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we'd move on to something else probably. If a leader like if that happened, I don't even want to mention that, but
yeah,
either of any leaders, I wouldn't want to see any that had to happen to anyone. So that's kind of the story of Radio On, and I struggled with that for a long time. I had the first verse. The second verse originally was about going over to my friend's house and telling them to not believe me, and I finally realized, well, that's not necessarily the most important part. I really want to set more of the tone, so I finally came up with that second verse.
Yeah,
and that came, and then the whole Beatles thing. I don't know, they came along in there somewhere, and I talked about maybe something about Dylan later, but if you listen to it now, the whole chord progression and approach are kind of Dylan-esque. The beat and everything, and one of the this is not something where I lifted from him or anything. I probably hadn't even heard Visions of Johanna more than once or twice in my entire life, but it's similar in that, that kind of chord progression, a simple chord progression and that beat.
Yeah.
So, if I had thought about doing a studio version, I might, have added a bit more instrumentation, just to give it a more Dylan-esque flavor on purpose. Yeah. If I wanted to make that my aim, but I didn't do it. We got to the point where we just decided to release all these acoustic demos as songs, because James had done just a superb job of the engineering and production on them. So,
well, it sounds beautiful. I mean, like I said,
thank you very much.
The chord progression is great. It does make you sort of that catch your breath kind of moment. There are moments in there, and I think that part of that is because you choose to just sing "Turn Your Radio On" in the chorus. You don't build the chorus out lyrically, so that statement, those 4 words, really have that impact that you want to sort of, again, to bring people back to that event if they were there and if they remember it, or to sort of evoke that in those of us who weren't. I think it's a powerful way of doing it. It's a good bit of songwriting.
Well, it's a kind of thing you can really let loose on vocally. I haven't tried to take it up higher or anything, and I can hear where I'm a little rough in places, but it's kind of a vocal vamp improv thing I can do.
Yeah.
Because I can keep that going when I play live and just really tear into it vocally, and I can change the chord sequence a little bit here and there if I really want to make it take off, even more. So it was what I was trying to do was encapsulate the whole concept of turn your radio on for good or bad, and really just keep driving that. So, and one of the ways you do it is to have a repetitive nature to it, on the vocal. And you look at a lot of big hit songs, then the lyricists will keep them simple, but they have a chorus that they'll just make sure that doesn't get left behind, and they'll make it prominent. So if you were going to go to hit songwriting 101, one of the things would be you have to have more repetitive stuff in it.
Yeah.
That people
it's called a hook, right? That's why it's called a hook.
A hook, a lyric hook, and all that. Yeah. So I'm a very traditional kind of songwriter. I'm not trying to do new kind of stuff, what a lot of people are doing, where they're doing looping and they can't, change or modulate or anything like that. I'm very traditional song structure, verses, and I want to have a bridge, and I want to have something that's a real hook. I got a couple tunes now I haven't recorded yet. I play in this one new one I've got called Desperate Plea, and it's kind of a British poppy kind of 80s kind of chord progression, and boy, does that get people rolling at shows, man. They just great, so yeah, so I'm very much like that, traditional. Although that song, there's no bridge in that song, Radio On, but I didn't think it needed a bridge because what I did vocally and a couple little chord changes there were almost like a bridge, so
it keeps
it
the song
worked out
moving
pretty
along,
well. Yeah, and It's a enjoyable song to play live. As long as I've got a listening room kind of thing. And and I go to this thing in Deadwood called the Western Wild West Songwriters Festival. Have I told you about that?
I think you did. I think you did.
Yeah, it's in October, and what they do is they bring in up and coming Nashville songwriters. Some guys who are like behind the scenes all the time, others who are up and coming stars, and they come up there and they do the typical songwriter round kind of thing. They'll have 3 at a time in the evening at one of the places around Deadwood, and they do the same thing with the local or regional songwriters, but we're earlier in the day. And since we were getting ready to release Radio On, which by the way was we held off to be the last one of the album to be released to coincide with JFK's assassination anniversary. But I was absolutely floored by how many people came up to me after both of the sessions I did where I did Radio On, who were, my boomer age and everything, and were complimentary and had nice things to say about how it evoked memory and all that kind of thing. So
yeah,
I accomplished at least something by when I play it, that I make a connection with folks. So, that's why we kind of do this. Yeah. So that felt good.
Awesome, man. Yeah, so I mean, so Drive, Radio On, I would say that, when I listen to those 2 songs, it's like, okay, well, this is familiar. I know Tommy does this kind of stuff.
Yes.
The next song that you released, not so much. You've taken a little bit of a step outside of what you normally do.
There's 2 songs, actually. There's 2 songs.
Well, Tell Me I'm Crazy is the one I'm talking about.
I know. You're talking about In the Summertime. Or it was the summertime.
Well, that one, but Tell Me That I'm Crazy is the one that I'm talking about, because we talked about it in the summertime last time we got together.
Oh, did we? Okay, yeah, that was.
Tell Me That I'm Crazy is a big step, big left turn, in a good way.
Yeah, well, you got to lay down some funk now and then, don't you?
Well, and this, like, so we're talking about hooks in songs, and it can be lyrical, it can be a riff, it could be. For me, the one in this is the harmonica. And that harmonica, if you take the harmonica out of this song, it doesn't have the same kind of the same kind of heart.
Yeah, I like to play the harp, and I like to play this blues harp, although, I also play the first position harp. I even do a better job at.
Right.
Well, first, you're playing a harmonica that's in the key you're playing, and your melody is in the, major key or whatever, as opposed to when you play harmonica blues style, which is cross harping, and you're basically playing the minor pentatonic over the 1-4-5. So
yeah,
but no, we wailed on that one. we wailed on it. That was, and the sidemen did it all remote. They came in after me, but somehow it sounds live.
It does, yeah. And I actually thought it was. I was going to ask you about that, because the piano part in this too is fabulous. Oh yeah, there's some great stuff, and James was great about getting these 2 guys to come in and play, and the piano player Tyler Andrews, I know him from going to the Nashville Songwriters sessions every month, to show off new songs. Yeah, and James, he's a friend of James too, so he got him, and the other fellow's name I forget played the slide guitar. Normally, I would play some additional stuff on there as the solo guitar in there, but we left it out because we had the slide going on too. Yeah. And I'm on rhythm guitar and harmonica there. So, but I overdubbed the harmonica, which is nice because when you're playing harmonica live, you got a rack. You can't do the things you do, with a blues harp. So, and sometimes when I'm playing, I'll just forget playing guitar and I'll just wail on the harp and everything. That I use that as a song live to just get audiences into, I kick off the drums on that, and then I played that opening riff, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah, and then I just slam into it, And here's this story about a guy with a problem with women, right? and it just goes on, and everything is going on. And you can see people in the audience, they had a few to drink, and they're just like getting into it all of a sudden. And I'm wailing on the harp and coming up with these lyrics. And I'll do a little rappy kind of things in it live, Yeah. So, originally when I started playing around with it,
I said, the thing that kept me going on writing it was like, maybe I can sell this to Aerosmith.
Yeah, I could hear Aerosmith doing
You know,
this.
can you hear Steven Tyler or somebody
Yes.
doing this? Yeah. So that's what kept me going. And the story is just, I don't know where I came up with that. It's just, it kind of wrote itself. You know, if you let your imagination go on songwriting, if you haven't listened to it, the people out there, it's a story about a guy who's leaving his girlfriend because she fools around on him. You know, so he goes away and distantly, you know,
Yeah.
and somehow she tracks him down and begs him to come back. And he says, no way, I'm not doing that. But okay, you know, she keeps it up and he comes back and there she is fooling around with another guy when he gets back. So he's taken off again. So there's kind of a repetitive thing to this guy keeps coming back to getting his head hammered by this girl. So yeah,
Well,
it's fun. And you know, it's just a thing in E, A, and D, you know, it's just one of those blues things.
yeah.
You know, with E and A, and you could just wail on the harmonica over it and have a blast.
Well, and
So-
music should be fun now. I like music that doesn't always take itself seriously, right? Because that line in it that
Oh,
just
yeah.
cracks me up is because I need your loving and your money desperately.
And I've got these people out in the audience shaking their head going, yeah, I know
Yeah.
the kind of chick you're talking about. No offense to the women out there, but, you know, it's not meant to be misogynistic because, you know, it's
It
not
goes
about
both ways,
women in general. It's about one woman. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
but that's amazing when I get people going. When I did this gig this last weekend, you know, I get the drums going, I'm going to do Tell Me I'm Crazy. And people were, you know, because this one place in Minnesota, I've had some gigs there where the people just come swarming in to see me. It's like the only place that's ever happened. So I give them what they want. And yeah, Tell Me That I'm Crazy. It's just it's just a blast to play. And you can bring in any guitar player and they can play along with that pretty
Yeah.
well. The only thing they have to, I did put a real nice bridge in it, or middle eight. So you know, that's pretty cool. You know, I even have a C sharp minor in there in the song, you know.
Getting fancy.
Yeah, it's a blues song, but then I threw this, you know, I'll do that. I'll throw in that C sharp minor in the blues song. The guys go like, what?
Hey,
What's that?
that's a $20 chord you just threw in there.
Yeah,
Whoa, whoa,
No,
whoa.
no. That's a 50 chord like Tom Petty would call them.
Yeah.
I do a lot. I'm writing a lot of stuff with 50 chords these days, you know, diminished chords, major seventh.
Yeah.
I forget the interview with Tommy. He said, yeah, we were going to write that, but it had some 50 chords, so we had to drop those out.
Well, I can't remember which song it was too. There was a song he wanted Johnny Cash to sing, but Johnny wanted him to change one of the chords, and Tom's like, nah, it doesn't. Or he wouldn't sing it. He's like, nah, it doesn't work without a disagreement over one chord. Like, are you kidding me?
There are places with some of Tom's songs where you could probably throw in a couple passing chords that might do some
Yep.
things, but you know, that's what it is. So that's great. So,
Was the master of simplicity and economy, right? So
well, you know, I have to say from the perspective of when you get on stage, if you got a song that's really complex to play, you better have rehearsed it real well, or you better be the most fantastic guitar, because all of a sudden you wrote this song and you're going like, oh no, I've got to play those changes. I can't even, you know, it's like that.
and
Well, that's
sing
what
over top
Tom-
of it.
Do you remember what Tom said when he was being interviewed about playing the Super Bowl? It said, Tom, what were the thoughts that were going through your head while you were getting up there to play in front of the Super Bowl? You were just amazed to be in the Super Bowl? And he says, no, I'm just trying to remember the next chord I got to play.
It's funny when you hear
Yeah.
musicians say stuff like that because it sounds glib and flippant, but actually there is an
Yeah,
element of
it's true.
truth to it. They're just thinking, well,
Yeah.
oh, you know, like you said, oh crap, we got to E minor here? Oh, let's have a quick look at. Oh no, we're good. No, we're good. Watch your bandmates.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, you expect like these guys who've been playing for 50 years, you know, that they know all the repertoire, right? All
Yeah.
500 songs they've released and play them anytime on stage. And like, God, we haven't played that in 20 years. And now
Yeah.
they go back and try to listen to it and figure out how they played something. They're going like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I played it.
Well, there's
You
that
know?
the great story about Mary Clouser. Always wanted him to do Mary's New Car, and like it would be
Yeah.
something that on the Mojo tour or something. And it's like, you know, he says she come up, oh, do Mary's New Car. It's like as if we remember it, like as if we don't remember that.
Exactly. That's why I'm glad I only have 15 of my own songs out there, because most of those I can remember, so.
The nice thing about your own songs, I've talked to a couple of people about this, friends of mine, they say the good thing about your own songs, if you're not like a big major artist, is not that many people know. So if you drop it the wrong chord in, you can usually get away with it because no one knows, right? So...
Yes. Well, yes. It was noticed when I fumbled on Honeybee this weekend.
Okay.
Yeah. I do Honeybee acoustically sometimes, and
Sweet.
There's times where I've just killed it. Okay,
Yeah.
but maybe I didn't rehearse it enough before the show. And I do a thing where instead of just that, da 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 da, I do a power chord thing through that. So I got the harmonized power chord, and I just couldn't get that right. And I was like this bumbling old professor with that song this weekend, and I'm screaming out, "Oh, and the women are looking at me like, "What the hell is
this guy's having a breakdown on stage?"
Yeah, we don't know that song. There's a lot of this thing with audiences, and I don't want to sound like a complainer, but if you want an immediate reaction from an audience at a small venue where they've been drinking and having a good time, and your set list was entirely songs they knew, you'd go home a hero. But I'll say, "Hey, you want to hear a Johnny Cash song?" And they go, "Yeah." And I'll play Big River, and a lot of people don't know that's a Johnny Cash song, and they're like, "When are you going to play a Johnny Cash song?"
Yeah,
well, I just did. So, it's not the Johnny Cash song I like. So,
well, that's my
friend. There's some of that, yeah. So you run into all that.
My pal Randy's always says, like they'll, because he used to be he was in a blues rock band, and then he was in more of a sort of a funk, reggae, R&B type of band, and they're playing like late in the evening, and they're playing all these songs that have got rhythm and polyrhythm and all this kind of stuff, and some guy shouts, "Oh, play Slide or play something from AC/DC." It's like, what planet do you think that AC/DC goes after Paul Simon, you lunatic? Go home, you're drunk.
Yeah.
Or his reaction would sometimes be, "Well, this is AC/DC's favorite song," and then just play whatever song they were going to play anyway. So
yeah. Well, I always tell people that I play a lot of old stuff, but I play a lot of obscure music by people really well. So I'm maybe doing the Dylan songs they don't know, but I think are great and they should hear. Someone once said, "When you go to play live, don't play what you think the crowd wants. Play what you think they should hear."
Yeah.
From your perspective.
But then it's going to be more authentic. It's going to be more authentic. If you sell it because you love it, that's going to come across. If you're just going through the motions playing Brown Eyed Girl, like a million other guys have done, it's okay. Well, I've heard that song before.
Yeah. And I joined a group on Facebook called Solo Acoustic Musicians.
Yeah. And
it's a great group because I get to see all these guys who have basically the same live setup as me and are doing the same exact things. They're load in, how they're setting up, what they're getting paid, crowd reactions. And I'm like, boy, there's like 4 million other people living my life here. I don't feel so unique now, but you hear a lot of good stuff. And it's always that. Yeah, I've got this set list, nobody's listening. You get to that peak time in the evening where everybody's yakking, talking. It's not a listening room.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to keep playing, man. You just have to have the discipline. I'm not going to let it get me down. I'm just going to keep playing. And there's somebody listening,
That's the professional.
And there's always the person who comes up after the show says, "I loved what you played."
Yeah.
And I loved you doing that song. And that's right from when you thought nobody was listening. So you just have to keep that in if you're doing this small venue live music stuff.
So you said
until you hit the big time, like I'm going to do this year while I'm playing festivals. So,
hey, you never know. It could be the first step, right? But you said that.
No.
So Drive Radio On and Tell Me That I'm Crazy, then you said were sort of more or less demos. Is there a plan to record them and put out the second album, or what's the plan for those songs?
No. It was a summertime Drive and Tell Me That I'm Crazy are done. We don't.
Okay, so
those aren't demo. Those are done.
Okay.
Those will be on the next album.
Okay.
The title of that is going to be called Ghost Machines.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's from a lyric that's in, I don't know if you listen to that little song of mine, Pictures on My Phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the song when I finally croak and they put me in the grave, I want on the headstone, I want to say, this is the guy who wrote Pictures on My Phone.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about that song. So yeah, that'll go on there, and a bunch of other stuff. I got a list of 50 songs.
Yeah.
Waiting.
You are inspired by Dylan then, right? So
No, I don't have worry about writer's block, because I know I'll just be goofing around in the kitchen with a guitar and something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like Ed Sheeran in the movie Yesterday's.
Yeah.
What's your process? Well, Ed, I get up in the morning and have a cup of coffee, and after the first cup, I go and get the guitar, and then I just kind of dink around, and some riff comes out and a snatch of melody, and we're off to the races. And so I don't worry about it. I just wrote one a couple of weeks ago that just popped into place, and it's the most country thing I've ever written.
That's not a bad thing.
I could send it right off to Nashville, really. So, yeah. So, and that's, there's going to be some diversity on the second album. You're going to go from It Was the Summertime to Tell Me That I'm Crazy to Drive to Pictures on My Phone.
Yeah.
People are going to like, there's no genre for this guy. It's everything. So,
well, that's a good thing. Again, I mean, that's
Yeah,
where
yeah,
as a
I think so.
listener, but because of your voice and because of the types of songs that you write, that's that through line. It's still going to sound like you.
Yeah.
You're never going to lose
It's like-
yourself to genre, right?
kind of like listening to the White Album, where there's so much diversity, but it's all Beatles.
Just sounds like the Beatles. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all together. The White Album might be my favorite Beatles album, because there's
Revolver,
It's
man.
just-
It's all Revolver for me.
how do you you look at what we've got from the past. We've got Tom Petty's Wildflowers. We've got the White Album.
Yeah.
We've got Close to the Edge. We've got whatever, the Yes Album. We've got that. We've got the Jayhawks Hollywood Town Hall. How do you top those albums? You just can't. So
Yeah, absolutely.
just great stuff.
Okay, well, hey, Tommy, thanks so much for jumping back on. This has been an absolute blast. I'm really excited that there's a new album coming out. Tell my listeners where they can find you, where to follow you on social media, and what you've got coming up.
Okay, for my music, you can find me on Spotify, YouTube, and all those streaming places. And just look for Tommy Edwin, and you'll find my music there. And on social media, I'm on Twitter and Facebook and all those places too, under Tommy Edwin. You'll find me very easily. If you want to find my booking agent and have me come to your place and play, I'd love that too. So there's that, and that second album that will be coming out when we get enough things recorded is going to be called Ghost Machine. And Kevin, it's been a pleasure to be here with you. I enjoy these sessions so much. The Tom Petty Project is fabulous. You are one of the best hosts I've ever run into in my life, and
thanks,
I
man.
really appreciate the privilege of being able to come on here and talk to you.
Well, you're more than welcome anytime. This is not the last time you'll be on the show. I guarantee you that.
Oh, thank you very much. I look forward to it. We'll see ya.
Well, living apart is hard, we both agree. So let's talk it out and we'll see just what we see. I don't like the part where you say goodbye. Or you get into that car and off you drive. And I don't like the part where you're far away. And I don't get to be with you each day. I like the part where you call me on the phone. And you tell me that it won't be long. like the part where you start to cry. Oh, on the night before you gotta drive. And I don't like the part where you gotta go up that lonesome highway all alone. I like the part where you pull into my driveway. 7 days I know you're gonna stay. Where you say goodbye, or you get into your car and off you drive up that lonesome highway far away, where I don't get to kiss you every day. I like the part where you smile and say hello. Come on up them stairs and through my door. Yeah, I like the part where you smile and say hello. You come on up them stairs and through my door.